Well, good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning for Coffee Chat. If you're watching us on the replay, thanks for watching the replay. And my name is Colleen Hammond. Whoops, I'm just getting settled in. And I am a former on-camera meteorologist for the Weather Channel and decided to leave it all to be a stay-at-home mom. And while I was at home raising a lovely family of 4 children and homeschooling them all, I also ran a image consulting business on the side. So for the past 30 years or so, I have been working as an image consultant. So thank you for joining us this morning. We have yet again another unplanned for topic. Good scare is worth more to a man than good advice. Now, how many times have we been given advice about, lose weight, eat better, whatever, that Canadian Thanksgiving, that's right. Happy Thanksgiving in Canada, Jocelyn, to all my friends north of the border. But how many times have we been given a good piece of advice and we're like, yeah, yeah. And it doesn't come kind of until something happens in our life. And why is it that we have to wait for something bad to happen before we take people's good advice? And, I'm trying to tell that to my teenagers too. So life is kind of like a professor, and we're the students. And we just kind of plug through life and learn, hopefully learn. And like I said the other day, we fail forward. Thank you, Barbara Ann. Barbara Ann says, I'm looking lovely this morning. Krista, for sure it is for you too. Rex was really busy yesterday. With your glasses, you can't do that with your glasses, how you prop them up. I prop them up because if I wore them down, this is what would happen. Kristen says she can't do that with her glasses. So yeah, well, you know what I did is I raised the light. Rex says there's no glare on my glasses this morning. I raised my light a little bit higher, and then I lowered the tripod. I lowered the camera a little bit so that I'm not getting any glare whatsoever. And then, of course, the old trick about putting them up like this. So no, I don't normally wear them like this, but only when I'm on camera so that you don't get a pop and glare in your face. All right, so what happens after we get a good scare? Suddenly things become clear. And I have this prayer I say. Well, good, Herbert, I'm glad you're here. He says it's a lovely diversion for the morning. We do this Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Just get together for a cup of coffee and a chat. And usually whatever comes to my mind, because what I had prepared didn't come to fruition this morning. But we will be starting that self-confidence series coming up soon. So what usually happens after we get a scare? There's a prayer that I say every Sunday. And I think it's from St. Augustine. There's a bunch of prayers that I say, but there's a prayer that I say that talks about after, no, I don't have my missal in here, after we have sinned, basically, God gives us the stripes. But after that, we're all contrite and we apologize. And then, sometimes we fall into those same bad habits. And it's the same type of thing in war, where they say there's no atheists in foxholes. So how many men and women find God and find their faith when they're in a military situation, where they're risking their lives to defend ours so that we can sleep safely at night? And they have a situation where they find God. When they come back, do they maintain that relationship with God? And I'm not just talking about the military, I'm talking about all of us. I've had situations in my life that have brought me to my knees, which is where I should have started in the first place, was on my knees. And a situation will happen and it'll bring me to my knees. But do I stay there? Not always. It's kind of like climbing a slippery hill. I improve on my faith life, my spirituality, and then I backslide a little bit. And then I improve a little bit more, and then I backslide a little bit more. Or maybe I'm the only one that does that. Maybe you guys are like, choo-choo trains that just keep plowing ahead and just right over the top of that hill. But sometimes it takes a good scare to teach us some lessons. So when I was diagnosed with cancer earlier this year, it was yet another wake-up call, which is interesting. I don't think Janet is on with us this morning, but Janet Sides and I had been talking probably less than a month earlier, because I've been dealing with health issues for a long time, and they found out I have a systemic mold infection. I'm going to be doing a whole blog post and a series on that and how to treat that. And then, hey, good morning, Gracie. Glad you could make it. Hey, you're a little bit late, girl. You're normally here before I am. And Barbara Ann says, yep, go up, let me see, like that, but fall down. It's down 7, up 8. Yeah, so that's tragedy always has to strike for us to go to God. It is kind of silly, isn't it, Rex? Because, it's one of those things. So, but I was talking with Janet probably a month before I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was exhausted. And she said, you better be careful, because I think God's trying to tell you to slow down. And if you don't slow down, God's going to knock you down, or something to that effect. And I went, that's really good. That's very, very true. Jocelyn says, sometimes a good scare makes me shut down. Other times it's a wake-up call. Yeah. Well, Grace, of course your baby comes first. I was just teasing you. So the very first thought, Liz, get in touch with me about the mold. Yes, it is very difficult to deal with it. I've been dealing with it for about 10 years. So if you want some information, I am going to be doing a whole series on it, actually. Good morning, Patricia. So the very first thing I said to the doctor when she said it was cancer, she was very good about it. She just very gently reached over and, it was cancer. I went, I don't have time for this. And she laughed and she went, I don't think I've ever had anyone say that before. And I said, no, seriously, I do not have time for this. And all I could think of is like, the treatment plan. I know people that have cancer and what they go through. And I've got so much on my plate. I don't have time for this. And then she was a little worried that I wasn't going to be a compliant patient, and that I said, no, that's just how it is. Susan, hi. Susan is joining us from Virginia. I'm so glad you could make it. Anyway, Herbert says, wouldn't it be nice if we could listen to God before he has to rap me on the head with a stick? I know, it's like a nun with the ruler rapping you on the knuckles, only God's a little bit more persistent. And that's one of the lessons I learned. But I kind of wrote down 5 lessons that I learned, because if you've ever done the Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENTJ. So I'm very driven. It's very type A. My children say I'm A+. And the challenge for me is that I knew that when I got the diagnosis that I'm a research type. I'm a control freak. And I'll go on the internet every time. And I don't really trust doctors, except for my doctor. I've been seeing her for almost 15 years, and I trust her explicitly. So this is why I could do this with her. And she explained everything to me. Now, my first reaction to something like that is to go nuts, get on the internet, research everything. And that's exactly what I did. Good morning, Mary from Philly. I actually, my I think it was my first Facebook Live I did was about Reggie Jackson, who was from the North Philly area. Anyway, so my first reaction, of course, was to go home and start researching. So I started researching, and I just about passed out. There is so much information on the internet. So I had another follow-up visit with my doctor, and I said, now she has dealt with cancer, worked at the cancer treatment centers. She is kind of in, I just knocked down a pile of books on my floor. I don't know if you heard that, but, oh no, it was, a shipping box from Amazon. She knows cancer. She worked at the cancer treatment centers. Good morning, Brian. Thanks for joining us. And she's also a naturopath. So she's an MD that's also a naturopath. And so she is well-versed in many different types of treatment. Good morning, Emily. And so I went to her and I said, very uncharacteristically of me, I don't want to know what type of cancer it is. Because I know how, and then once I found out all the different kinds of breast cancer there were, I don't want to know its name for 2 reasons. Number 1, I'll Google it to death. And number 2, let me get this message off my screen. It says my storage is full. Number 2, I don't want to give cancer that power. The word cancer itself carries a lot of weight and a lot of power. And so I don't want to give it any more power than it already has. I'm sick. Give me a treatment plan to make me better. Let's not call it cancer. because that's a scary word. You have cancer. My husband had a round with bone cancer a number of years ago. He has to go in for skin cancer to be removed every 3 months. We hear the word and we're terrified. I don't want to be that way. I want to be in control because, again, type A, ENTJ. If you do the DISC program, I'm a D. If you do the choleric melancholic thing, I'm a choleric, that type of thing. Good morning, Michelle from Canada. Whereabouts in Canada? Vancouver, Alberta, Toronto. What side are you joining us from? It's important for me to know for time zone reasons. I'm trying to gauge what the time zone is that people, because I know my friends in Melbourne, Australia want me to do this earlier in the day so that it's like 10 o'clock at night for them, but it'll be 7 a.m. for Eastern. So that was number one. I didn't want to give power to cancer, and I trusted her explicitly. But also, Dr. Bernie Siegel has done a lot of research on cancer patients that when they're involved in the decision-making process of their treatment and they're more hands-on with their treatment, they have a much higher success rate and survival rate. So to have that sense, Southwestern Ontario. Okay, well, I grew up just outside of Detroit, so London, maybe, Windsor. Good morning, Debbie. So I wanted to, like Dr. Bernie Siegel said, to have some sort of control over my treatment plan. Well, be careful what you ask for, because my treatment plan is all on me. She gives me the details, and I'm in charge of doing it. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to stay alive. It is exhausting to fight cancer. And I'm sometimes very exhausted. Like I said yesterday, and I'm just sorry for the tears. Those came out of nowhere, and I'm kind of pushing them back down right now. But it's, sometimes it's just hard to get out of bed in the morning. It's like, oh man, every 2 hours I'm doing something else. But I do feel better now than I have in a long time. Yeah, 7 Eastern before a.m. for you. That's what I was afraid of, Gracie. And somebody else said that too. Victoria said it was a bit earlier for the West Coast. But it is exhausting. So these are the 5 things that I have learned in the past 5 months since my diagnosis. And I think number one is courage. You dig down deep, and until you're faced with something, you really don't know how strong you are. And I consider myself pretty strong, but there's a lot of times that I crumple in tears. Yeah, tears are cathartic. I just don't like doing them in front of other people. Fighting for health is exhausting, Jocelyn. You're absolutely right. And it's the same thing over and over and over again. And then we kind of shift up a little bit of a treatment, and then I get sick, and and that's what's happened the past few days. I've been super sick and exhausted, and I did get a lot of work done yesterday, but I was in bed all day. So I'm kind of lying in bed on my laptop, So you do have more courage than you think you have. You are stronger than you think you are. And, fear tries to pull you back, but when you visualize driving forward, I can handle this, I can do this, I can overcome this, and I visualize myself on the other side. You have more strength and more courage than you realize. So I think that was the first thing I learned, is that I am stronger than I thought I was. Although I have to remind myself that sometimes on a daily basis. The first thing, so that kind of ties in with priorities too, but having priorities. There's a meditation, if you've ever done an Ignatian retreat, or if you've ever done any meditation, one of the meditations that you focus on is on your deathbed. Imagine yourself on your deathbed. Look back at your life. What do you wish you would have done? Now go do that. And I've done that meditation before, and I've tried to live that. But you know what? When your toes are pointed toward the pearly gates, that meditation becomes very real, very real. And there's kind of different things that you think of that put your priorities and shift your priorities in an order. And so for those of you that kind of joined a little bit later, we're discussing that a good scare is sometimes worth more to a man than a good advice. And I've been talking kind of about my personal recent scare, of course, with cancer, and then a month later having a heart attack because I wasn't dealing with that scare very well. So thank you for joining us. So yeah, your priorities come in order. So what are priorities really? So for me, priorities, my family is number one, which means my health needs to be number one. If I want to be here for my children, if I want to be here to see them get married, to have grandbabies, to be a part of my grandchildren's lives, my health has to be number one, which means I need to say no to things. Well, I'm a people pleaser, and being a people pleaser, it's sometimes difficult for me to say no when people call and ask for help. And there's a lot of things that I've done for free. I travel around a lot of different places and speak at a lot of conferences for nothing. Just pay to get me there. I can't do that anymore because now cancer treatments are blasted expensive because the natural methods aren't covered by your insurance. Let me see, former 1% outlaw, not looking back, too nasty, pre-confirmation. Yeah, Herbert, don't look back. Yeah, Rex, thank you. I think it's good advice. That's the only thing I know how to do too, but sometimes you get knocked down and you just kind of crumple there and you're sitting there going, I can't do it. Maybe you don't, but I was. So your health comes first so that your family can be there first. And my family has learned, and it's part of being a people pleaser, is doing things for others. And part of being a mom is taking care of your family. And you know how hard it is to sit and have my children wait on me and have my children do things for me. But what a beautiful lesson. What a beautiful lesson in care and in service and in charity to others that they can learn to give. So I can grow in humility by accepting their love and accepting other people's love and accepting other people's charity. That's hard for me, but it's helping me grow in humility to be able to sit back, be grateful, and say thank you. And it's helping my children and others around to grow in charity, to learn to give, to learn service. So although I am learning to keep my priorities in order and to be more humble, other people around me are learning and growing in virtue as well. I've relearned the importance of sitting outside and watching the cats play and the kittens. We have all sorts of different age groups right now with kittens. We have grandparents and adults and teenagers and newborns, so learning to sit and just enjoy and not be thinking about things, just to sit and be. And to watch a sunset, to watch the birds, to watch a spider make its net, build a web, to enjoy the simple things in life, and just to learn to be still and know that I am God. That's taken on a whole new meaning for me. The second thing I think I've learned, besides priorities and having courage, is that I'm not alone. Cancer strikes everybody. Cancer impacts just about everybody. And it's amazing to me the number of, I never get tired of hearing people's stories of courage and stories of triumph and how they overcame. Not everybody. Let me see. Christ Scott Rex says, Gracie said, never heard about that meditation. Yeah, that's St. Ignatius. You can look that one up. Rex says, Christ got back up after falling with a heavy cross. Why shouldn't we? Amen. That's so very true. Debbie says at their prayer group last night, we're talking about people not accepting help. What do you suggest when people don't accept your help? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. That's kind of what it boils down to. So you can't force people to accept charity. It's humbling, really is humbling. If you've ever had a baby and people bring food over, I am so grateful. But it's kind of embarrassing, like, oh, thank you. And it's part of me is like, I can't handle this on my own. I need somebody else to do it for me. And it's part of being a control person. And, I should be able to do this. Well, guess what? You have cancer. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Or guess what? You just have a baby. You're supposed to be with a baby, relaxing. Let me cook for you. So if people don't accept help, sometimes, I don't know, maybe go to them one-on-one and, help me help you. Help me grow help me grow in charity. Please help me grow in charity. Let me help you. So you're taking it off, the onus is off of them, and you put it on themselves, on yourself. But learning the second thing is that I am not alone. Cancer strikes everybody, and it's good to know that you're not alone. But 12% of women get breast cancer. And I have been criticized roundly by people for choosing to go a natural route because I'm misleading others. But at the same time, I'm being praised by people for being a trailblazer, and somebody said, oh, you have so much courage to go the natural route. And I said, I just don't have the courage, maybe I don't have the courage to do chemo. I don't know. I just thought it was a lot of poison. I didn't want to do that. And but then again, I don't want to go into detail about my treatment plan because my doctor designed it specifically for me, my multiple illnesses, my heart attack, my mold, all that kind of stuff. Mold, sometimes cancer is misdiagnosed and it's really mold. So that's an interesting thing too. Also, I'll put the link in here. The Truth About Cancer is having a conference right here in Dallas this week, starting the 14th. So it's this weekend, but they're live streaming it for free. And I'll give you the link for that. If you page down on my personal Facebook page, that's the other thing. People have said they're making comments that I'm not replying to. I can only see the comments. This is being live streamed on all 12 of my channels, I think, right now on Facebook. But I can only see the comments where I broadcast from, which is my personal Facebook page. So it's fb.com, Colleen.Hammond, if you want to see or make comments that I can actually see. All right, so again, so number 1 is priorities. Number 2, I'm not alone. Number 3, controlling your life is an illusion. As a type A personality, and Emily says, the do it kind of person, I always feel like I'm in control. Let me do it. I can do this. I can handle it. Control is an illusion. Controlling your life. There's internal control, internal forces and external forces. Your internal forces, you're totally under control of. My moods, my emotions, emotions are a chemical reaction. I am in control of how I respond to that chemical reaction that's happening. You can tell I have a chemistry major, right? I'm in control of that chemical reaction that's taking place inside of my body. Then the external forces. You can't control an accident. You can't control something from outside that impacts you. So if you're in a car accident because somebody T-bones you, and sometimes when you say, why God, why Lord, why? There's no answer. Just because, just deal with it. And maybe you'll know the answer later. It's the old saying about the tapestry or the needlepoint. When a child is sitting on the ground and it was like grandma had the big needlepoint frame, and so she's working on the needlepoint, and from her point of view she sees the top, but from the child's point of view sitting on the floor, all he sees is the bottom, and it's really messy. And life is messy. We talked about that a couple of days ago. Life is really messy, but God sees it from above, and God is the needlepoint artist, and he's designing and working and guiding us. But from underneath, all we see is a mess. So God sees the why. We can't see the why from the bottom looking up. It's just messy. So just deal with it. And that's how I've tried to deal with this whole cancer thing and everything that comes in my life. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That was hanging above my mom's sink. And I know it's the serenity prayer that they use in the 12-step programs as well. So very familiar with the serenity prayer. So cancer chose me because I'm special. I guess, I don't know. Let me see, internal forces. Oh, and the other thing about controlling your life is illusion. Sometimes God wants you to slow down, and if you don't listen to the signs, guess what? God will slow you down in his own very special way. The fourth thing that I have really learned is gratitude. They've done a lot of studies, scientific studies, on the importance of gratitude, and thinking of 3 new things every day to be grateful for. New things. Oh, I love the sunset, I love my children, I love my life. Okay, those are my 3 things every single day. No. Every day, come up with 3 new things that you're grateful for. And it focuses you to think back on the day and look at the things that happened that were amazing. So learning gratitude. I'm very grateful for my family, my friends, you, my support system, the emails I get, the people that donate. We had another donation yesterday, and I don't like putting out it's humility again, right? I don't like accepting other people's charity, but I really do need the prayers and the GoFundMe page. There was a donation yesterday. Somebody's donated for the third time. And she was kind of apologetic. She sent me a private note as a private donation. She said, I'm sorry, I missed my donation last month, but something came up. And I'm like, I happen to know what happened in this person's life. So like, just so humbled and grateful that once a month, this family makes a donation to my cancer fund so that I can continue to give myself treatment. So I'm grateful for family and friends, and I've learned acceptance. And with that acceptance comes a sense of peace. And with that peace comes joy. And, and sometimes the joy comes first, and the gratitude and the acceptance. But just being at peace with where I am, where my health situation is, where God has placed me in my life, and to have that acceptance is a very important lesson. Number 5 is the power of God and the power of prayer. When I had my heart attack back April 9th, it was almost exactly a month after my breast cancer diagnosis. I was in the hospital, and I was alone in my room. And the room I was in didn't have a television set, which was fine. And I was just kind of laying there listening to my heart beat and making sure that it was doing what it was supposed to do. And all of a sudden, I felt this amazing wave of peace and love just like throughout my entire body. It was almost tingling. And I remember looking up at the clock and looking to see what time it was. I went, this is just amazing. It was such a beautiful feeling. And I just felt such peace and such love. And I just closed my eyes. I said, this has to be God. This has to be God. And it was, God, what are you telling me? What are you saying to me? What is this? And then I had this feeling, just be still. Just be still and feel it, enjoy it, and know that you are loved. The next day I was discharged from the hospital. I got home. I was going through things. I logged onto Facebook, and then you can't post on my wall, or if you tag me, it doesn't show up on my wall. I have to approve things. Amazing the things I get tagged in. And so there was all these tags and on my timeline. So I went and I looked. And somebody had posted a prayer request and asked for it to be shared, and it had been shared like 80 some odd times or whatever. I looked at the time. It was the exact time the day before that I was lying in the hospital, and that I had felt that sense of peace. Don't ever think that your prayers are not heard. Don't ever think your prayers aren't being answered. Don't think prayer is silly or just talking to yourself. Prayers are powerful, and they are felt by the people that you're praying for, whether they kind of recognize it or not. That was so unbelievably powerful for me to know not only that people were praying for me, it was very humbling, but also, and here I am again crying, good heavens, but that your prayers are being heard. So there is an immense power of prayer. And learning to meditate and learning to be still. And that has been another lesson that I have learned. So anyway, I do like to keep these at half an hour, and I'm rambling on. So those are the 5 things that cancer has taught me. First, priorities. To always keep your priorities in order. Your faith comes first, your family is second, and then your job, your career, your other people, the people at the church. Put your family at the center. The second thing I learned is I'm not alone. you and the other people out there have been so amazing and helpful and powerful for me. My friends here locally, the people that have made meals for me, the people that have donated at the GoFundMe page, the people that have not donated but sent me a note saying that I'm in a really difficult situation, but I will pray for you every day. That means so much to me. Number three, the third thing I learned is controlling your life. That's an illusion. How you respond to what happens in your life is what you have control over. So choose to respond, not bitterly, not why, but with love, joy, and acceptance. The fourth thing I learned is to really focus on gratitude. Every day, every night, to think of 3 new things that day that you're grateful for. Whether it's whiskers on kittens and snowflakes on mittens, whatever it is. And the fifth thing, which is really the first thing, is that God is all powerful. And prayer is powerful. And when people unite in prayer, you know, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And when we unite together in prayer, that's a powerful thing. That can physically be felt. And that's a whole nother story. I'm not going to get into that because I was saying how I needed to wrap up because it's been a half an hour. So, and God can fill in. That's what Victoria says. God can fill in and make up. It got cut off. See, it's not doing it. Okay, here it is. God makes up for lost time in prayers. Yeah. And we can pray because God's outside of time. I pray retroactively as well. You can pray backwards in time. So that is today's topic. And the quote of the day was, "A good scare is worth more to a man than good advice." So don't wait for a scare. What can you do today that you were given advice on that you've kind of put off? Put your toes pointed toward those pearly gates. Do that deathbed meditation. If I was on my deathbed, what do I wish I would have done with my day today? And go do that today. Okay, I'm going to wrap up and I will see you tomorrow. We're just signing off. I'm sorry, you joined us late. But make sure you go back and watch the replay. The replay will be available in just a minute or two because we spent the last half hour talking about a good scare worth more than good advice. So God bless you all. Thank you for joining me this morning. Didn't get hardly any of my coffee drink because I was yammering away. Or actually my tea. I am having tea this morning. So anyway, have a very blessed day and a wonderful day. And pray for me. And I will pray for you. God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern with a new topic for discussion, our coffees, our teas, and our smoothies. God bless.